sang this song to me. There was a message in its melody, sweetest lyrics that I ever heard. There's a message in the songs of birds. Tomorrow is another day. Living is the only way tomorrow's gonna ever come. Listen to the words of the song. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything is gonna be
Greetings and welcome to A Sip of Inspirations podcast. I want to apologize for you all who have patiently waited for us, but we had some technical difficulties at the end. So that means that this is going to be a great show, because usually when it starts off like that, we have a wonderful conversation. So I want to thank all of you for tuning in today for the show. Now, I do my housekeeping at front because you guys know I forget. So go out to my website, champagneconnection.com. There's some free gifts for you that will help you actually improve your life and live the dreams that you want to live. And then there's some merchandise if you're interested in that too. So it's champagneconnection.com. I need to thank my sponsor, Rise. When you need a supply company to rise to your needs, call Resource Industrial Supply Equipment. They've been the sponsor since we started this about 4 years ago, and I am eternally grateful. Now, with that being said, I have a wonderful guest with me tonight, Asha B. Wilkerson, and I want to thank her for coming in because she actually has a business where she helps empower and heal Black women, Indigenous women, and people of color. And I think that that is absolutely fantastic because there are a lot of things going on with us that need healing, but it's wonderful when you can work with someone who looks like you and who have had some of the experiences. So I'm going to ask her to unmic and come on with me. So hi.
Thank you. Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to grace the presence of your show. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you being here too. So I'm going to tell the audience a little bit about you from her wonderful background, because I find that people don't like to say got all these great things about themselves. So I'm going to say it for her. Okay, put it out there in the universe. So she is an advocate, educator, and life coach is dedicated to empowering Black, Indigenous, and people of color women on the journey of freedom. She's leveraged her legal expertise, so she's an attorney, okay, over the years to guide entrepreneurs of color through business formations and legal matters, ensuring their sustained success. Currently, she channels her passion into life coaching, helping BIPOC women break free from societal expectations and embrace a life of freedom. So whether it is freedom from expectations or freedom to live the dream that they actually want to live, she's there coaching them and empowering them to live in their power, light, and love. So thank you for being here. Thank you, first off, for the work that you do for people like me and others who don't know sometimes how to get there, and we don't have anyone who looks like us to help us get there. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It is truly my honor and my pleasure to do the work that I'm doing.
So we do have to start by finding out. So you're an attorney and now you're helping women. So
yes,
what happened between the attorney and the helping women phase?
If I always say that if anyone could be an accidental attorney, that it was me. I did love Law and Order growing up. I still love Law and Order, but I really loved it for the psychology piece of it. I always wanted to understand why people did the things that they did and, made the decisions and how it impacted them later in life. But when I was an undergrad, I had the opportunity to do a pre-law undergraduate scholars program. And I was supposed to go home to Portland, Oregon to work at the Boys and Girls Club. The Boys and Girls Club lost funding. And so I literally just happened upon this opportunity, enjoyed it, thought okay, let me apply to law school and see what happens. That's definitely my motto. Just apply and see what happens. And, who knows what doors will open from there. So I ended up going to law school, not because I knew I really wanted to be an attorney, but because between teaching and being an attorney, I figured that the legal background would give me the best platform to be able to help people in different ways, whether that was in court or writing policy or, teaching or doing a number of different things. So that's how I ended up in law school. But my passion, again, was never really law. It was really helping people. And since I entered law school, I have pivoted several times to find what space felt right for me to help people. I never let go of my passion for teaching. I taught high school and middle school kids about the law. We called it a street law program when I was law school. And then after I graduated, I started teaching at a paralegal program. And about 6 or 7 years in, I found myself just really burnt out from the practice of law. I was doing employment litigation, so I was representing people who had been discriminated against and lost their jobs because of an unlawful reason. And it was a lot of weight to carry, a lot of responsibility to carry, especially because a lot of my clients were people of color or underrepresented in some way. And I was really young, so I had a hard time setting boundaries. I'm also an empath, so if you cry, I'm gonna be crying. I'm like, why are we crying, right? I feel everything. And so I knew that I needed to switch. I started teaching full time and running a paralegal program at a community college. And then most recently pivoted again and said, you know what? It was actually a trip that I took to Ghana. And when I was able to reconnect with the positive history of our ancestors, because in America, we only know about the negative stuff. That's all we talk about is about the negative stuff. Our history starts with slavery. But when I was able to go to the continent of Africa and realize that there's so much history and culture and heritage beyond or before colonization, it hit me that my ancestors have already proven everything that they needed to prove. I've already proven everything that I need to prove. Now it's time to actually go and live free like we have always wanted to be since colonization. And so that was that moment. And I started making decisions from there, ended up resigning from my full-time job and really stepping into this role of life coach and healer for Black women and women of color.
So in your experience as a life coach, what are some of the challenges that Black women and Indigenous women and people of color, because sometimes that's all they see is the color, not that other color. What have your experience been when it comes to them embracing themselves and when they try to show up authentically? What happens in the rest of the world that they have to live in?
Yeah. So one, oftentimes we don't really know who we are. We're as a whole, as people of color in general, we're so overdetermined by society, and particularly as Black women, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. If we're expressive and vocal, then we're loud and bossy. And if we advocate for ourselves, then we're angry. And then there's also that piece that has been that racism that has been so internalized by our own folks of, you're lucky to be in this position. Why would you do anything to jeopardize it? Why would you complain? This is what we sacrifice so much for you to be able to do. So it's hard to find that true identity because we have examples, but the generations before mine have had to play the game in order to survive. So not that people were putting on airs, but the free that I get to be is different than the free that my mom got to be when she knew that she had to keep her job in this white institution. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to put food on the table for me. So it has evolved over the years.
And I know a lot of times you'll hear things on the press and people will say, well, I don't want to do that. I just want to be free. But if they hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be able to do the things that I wanted to do either. As a matter of fact, my parents pushed me to do something I wanted to do and not something that I just had to do to stay alive. So in your experience, what are some of the common challenges when people finally decide that they're going to look for someone to help them with those challenges. Because, you know, we all think we can fix ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of it. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things is being afraid or hesitant to reach outside of ourselves for help, or for guidance. This has happened to me a couple of times when I knew that the traditional law practice wasn't for me. I had to turn to people who were just running online businesses to see how I could run my law practice as a virtual law firm, because all of the examples in my lane were brick and mortar businesses. For me now, looking at what is possible, I have to look at people not necessarily in my own family, because my family, my aunt and uncle and my mom have worked for the same institution for 40 years, right, before they retired. And so you have to step outside of yourself and outside of what you know, because there are examples that are out there. But you have to be strong enough to do it when people don't understand you, and you have to be brave enough to do it when people will question your decisions and what you're doing. And it's not because they don't want you to be freer or to be more successful, but what they know is what has worked for them. And it's scary for them to think about, this person that I love and care about so much is going to go off on this uncharted path, and I don't know anything about it. Let me make sure that she stays right where I know success is on the other side.
And you got a special quote in there. It says you have to be strong enough when people don't understand you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Someone gave me, I have a quick example. I
okay.
was a couple weeks ago, I was at a conference for coaches, and I was going through it. I walked in and I felt all kinds of imposter syndrome, despite all of the things that other people, list that I have done. And I was just having a tough time. I was super emotional, because when I resigned from my job, I resigned at the end of December, and I'm on my way to building. I am building, and I still feel like I am arriving at the same time, that I haven't gotten quite to where I want to be, but I'm on this path. And another coach told me, she said, "You know what? You're kind of like a hermit crab." I said, "Okay, tell me a little bit more, like keep going with the story." And she said, "Hermit crabs live in shells. And when they outgrow a shell, their structure, their protection, they have to go find a new one. But before they know where the new one is, they have to leave the old one. And on that path of leaving the old one, they're vulnerable. They can get burned. Any little wind that blows, they feel it even more." She's like, "Asha, you're like that hermit crab that is between the old structure that you have outgrown and still finding the new structure that you are walking towards." And I was like, I'm a doggone hermit crab. It resonated with me so much. And that journey between what you're leaving behind or where you don't want to be and what you are moving towards is a sensitive, vulnerable kind of a journey, because you're without that you could be without the structures, right? Maybe not without all of the structures, but it's vulnerable. It's something new. And so, a lot of people will turn back and go back to that old shell that doesn't fit anymore. And so having support along the way who that can help you regulate your nervous system, that can remind you of who you said you wanted to be, who can add more skills so you can get there a little bit faster, and who can support you when you fall, because you will, because it's a journey, like a baby learning how to walk. That's the power in getting help outside of yourself and working with coaches and therapists to help you become who you really want to be.
So, do our communities have enough support system available for us, and what role do they play in this journey? Because this is not only a journey of healing, but it's a journey of self-discovery too.
Hmm.
So, how do
Yeah,
our systems help or hinder
that's
us,
a really good question.
especially
Yeah,
for people of color and Black women?
right. So I do think that there is a rise of Black women life coaches, Black women healers that are coming back out. People are tapping into their ancestral wisdom. They're learning more about energetics. We're looking at how, the church has helped and also hurt women as, we become our own and our voices get hampered. So I do think that there is support out there. I don't know that everybody knows where to get it. And you also have to be in a place of, I find it's two places. It's either like I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, where people
Yes, that's
have
the
gotten
place. Right.
Like, I can't take it anymore. I better find an alternative, or I don't know what's going to happen, right? That's one end. Or people have gotten themselves to a place where they're comfortable, they're financially comfortable, they've achieved what they want in their career, and now they're at a place where they're no longer in survival mode and they can explore different things because they don't feel like it's as risky, or their needs are taken care of. So we want to be able to help people that are in the middle by doing things like, join a meditation session. Let's see what's going on, because most of us do not take time or feel like we don't have even just 10 minutes, even just 5 minutes in our day to just sit there, close our eyes, and just check in with ourselves. What am I feeling in my body? What's going on? Let me just breathe and calm myself down. We're moving, we're going.
Yes, I think that when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, there's a powerful place to be, because you then make decisions, and none of them include going back to where you left.
Right.
So how do you convince people that meditation and sitting with yourself is important to do on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Not when you're just mad about something or crying about something, but every single day.
Yeah. I would say I tell people to start where they are. So if the only time that you can think about meditating is when you are upset, do that and get into the practice of it. But it is harder to calm yourself down when you're upset if you have not developed the practice of checking in with yourself along the way. But again, start where you are. Take a bite of the apple wherever you can bite it, and then start to look at the bigger pieces of it. And just hearing stories and testimonials from people who have engaged in some of these self-care practices, a lot of times we think it's, oh, this is like spooky stuff. And it's not. It's really just sitting with yourself. I just recorded a podcast last week. When was the last time somebody asked you what you want? And then the follow-up question is, when was the last time you asked yourself what you want? We often are, again, just so busy that we don't check in. And the busyness, there's some reality to it, but there's a lot of avoidance to the busyness. And so my question then becomes, without judgment, what is it that we're not wanting to feel? What is it that we're not wanting to deal with? Because once you recognize it and you can name it, there's going to be a desire to do something with it, but you do have to be prepared to work with whatever comes up.
So when you work with women and they do sort of figure out what it is, what they want to do, and then that's not something that maybe society would embrace, or your own family, how do you help them to still trust the path that their soul wants to travel?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. So we do a lot of connecting with what it is that they really want. And I teach people to use their body's wisdom. So somebody asked me the other day, well, I can't tell if it's my fear that's coming up or if it's my intuition. And I told her, I said, just, a minute a day, just practice closing your eyes and scanning your body. Start at the top of your head and notice what sensations you feel. Notice what you feel in your throat, in your chest, in your stomach, in your legs, and your feet. And just get a feel for what is your state. And then think about something that brings you joy. And scan your body again. Where do you feel that joy? Is it in your stomach? Is it excitement? Is it like a pitter pattering of your heart? Is it in your head somewhere? And then think about something that is the opposite of joy, something that you can't stand, that you don't want to do, and notice where that shows up and how that sensation shows up. And then that becomes your barometer, your gauge. And so now when you are making a decision, you know what your baseline is, but you can get quiet and go, do I want to move to Texas? Let me sit. Where do I feel that? What does that sensation tell me? When you begin to recognize your body's wisdom, it becomes easier to make those decisions, but not always, right? Because families, family legacy, family expectations, the guilt trip that comes down if I didn't work this hard for you to go play tiddlywinks. I could hear my dad saying that, how you gonna feed your kid, like all the scarcity stuff that comes up that's in our communities it's not based in nothing. It's rooted and something that's real. But I also have my clients do an exercise of naming those doubts that come up and giving a voice to those doubts. So, who said that? Where did it come from? Is it yours to own, or is it your parents? Is it your aunties? Is it societies at large? Then you get to make a choice of, okay, can I dismiss this because it's not really mine? And then the ones that are yours, we work through them to figure out what mindset shifts need to happen, what belief shifts needs to happen, and what evidence we need to gather to debunk this belief, this safety mechanism that says it's not possible or I shouldn't do it. I remember my mom had told me, she's a career educator. And when I started teaching full time at the community college, it was very clear to me within a few months that I did not want to be a dean. And I'm always the one that rises up to the top to leadership positions. And her immediate response that she doesn't remember at all is, well, how are you going to feed your kids if you don't become a dean? I'm like, what? And it like shook me for a moment. And then I realized, okay, that is her fear kicking in before she's even thought rationally about, you mean to tell me that all of these full-time college professors, none of them can afford kids? They all have kids. Like, how did that work out for them, right? And so I was able to give that fear back to my mother and not take it on, not internalize it, because it really wasn't mine to hold. And if I needed more support, I would say, okay, let me look at all the college professors that have raised kids who have been full-time professors. Let me look at, all of these different ways to make money if money is an issue. Let me look at how to monetize my strengths and the things that I want. So you just begin to work around the roadblocks that your mind automatically brings up, which are just there to keep you safe.
So what are the common doubts that people have? Because even though we're different people, generally, when it comes to the doubts and the fears, they can be similar.
Yeah. So after coaching people for about 6 months, I realized that it really comes down to, we are afraid to put ourselves first. We're afraid to honor our needs first, because either we think it dishonors our parents somehow. It's not good for our marriages somehow. We'll be considered selfish somehow. We're so lucky to be here. Why can't we just accept what this is, right? We are so socialized and conditioned out of, as women, tapping into what it is that we want and that what we need, and expressing those desires to the world. But I firmly believe that if you put your desires into the world, the universe, God, creation will come and meet you there. But if we don't know what they are, and if we don't practice putting them out there, how can the universe meet us where we're trying to go? So that at the root of it is that we don't know what we want, and or we are afraid to tell people. That shows up in relationships with difficult parents. I've worked with people who have had parents where they're trying to set boundaries and the parents want more attention, and it's but they're afraid to change that dynamic because they're the child, and the children should honor their mother and their father. They haven't thought about, how do I want to be in this relationship and what changes can I make? Same thing at work. I feel so like I need this job so much, that frenetic energy of, oh my God, what am I going to do? Let me ask you, what do you want? What does it look like for you to do work that lights you up? What are all the different ways that you could show up and do this work, either in your situation or outside of your situation? So it really, again, comes down to, what do you want and how do you express that?
So a lot of people say that when they think about what they want, they can't pinpoint it. So are there exercises to help them with that? Like, they know they want something different. There's no way they're going back there to do that same old thing that was making them tired. Okay. But they just don't know how to move forward. So what can they do to just figure out, just to take those next few steps? Because a lot of people do continue to be miserable because they just don't know what else to do or how to do it.
Yeah, I love that question, because I do a lot of work around that. You don't have to know what it is yet. You just need to know that this ain't it. Like, this is no longer it. We're going to make a move from there. And so what I have people do is to get really clear and identify what it is about the situation that they don't like. Is it that you don't like your commute to the job? Is it that you don't like your supervisor? Do you not like the work? Do you not like the hours? We can start with what it is that is actually causing you agitation and ask questions around what would make this better? What would it look like to show up to work and to not be irritated by the time you get there? What would it look like to show up to a house where you didn't have to immediately jump in and deal with the kids or the housework, right? So you start with what is bothering you, because that's sometimes easier to know what you know. And then we start dreaming up alternatives through meditation and just through like sitting there and asking yourself, what is it? What do I want? What do I want? If I could answer this question, if I knew what I wanted, if I could answer this question without any restrictions, if somebody wouldn't tell me no, what do I want? And it may not come right away, because again, how often do we ask ourselves what we want? Not very often. So we can take as long as it takes for it to come up, and know that what you want right now may not be what you want in 5 years or 5 months. And that's okay. Let's look at what do I want in this moment, because putting the pressure on of deciding what you're going to do for the whole rest of your life is big pressure, too much. You're going to be a different person in a year, right? Maybe you want something else, and that's okay. It's okay to change and adjust according to who you are right now.
So when they decide what they want, does it help if they sort of imagine or role play or pretend to be that? Does that help?
Yeah. So part of visualization and manifestation, it gets stronger when you put senses on it. When you engage your 5 senses. So if I were to walk people through a visualization about their ideal morning, I would ask them, where are you waking up? Is it in a bed? Is it in a hammock? Is it someplace else? What does it feel like? What sounds do you first notice when you come to consciousness? What do the sheets feel like as they're touching your legs and your arms as you get out of bed? What does your robe feel like if you put that on? What do you hear? What do you smell? Is it coffee? Is it eggs? And I just guide people through that. What does it taste like? What does the air smell like? What do you see in your space? And then people just begin to imagine. And the way that our brains work, if we can engage the 5 senses, then it makes it more real. Our brains don't actually know the difference between what has actually happened and what we are telling ourselves has happened. So you almost become delusional in what you want in your dream. And it's delusional because it hasn't happened yet. But when you imprint that image, that vision in your brain will work and move to make that happen, because it doesn't know that that's not real.
That's right. It doesn't. No. And for those of you all haven't tried it, just tell you, it is incredible. It's an incredible feeling. So we talked about visualization. So what are some other practices that we should incorporate in our daily lives to make sure that we are cultivating a sense of self-awareness and empowerment in our own lives? Because as you've eloquently said, no one can do that for us except ourselves. That's our job.
Yeah.
So what other things should they do, and how often during a course of a day should they do it?
Yeah. So I'm a big proponent of breath work, and I'm getting certified to become a breath work facilitator for these longer breath work journeys. But I love a 4-count box breathing whenever I just need to calm down, or even just being intentional about my inhale and bringing it all the way up, and my exhale, letting all of the air out of my body. Sometimes I do that just to start my day, just to get grounded. It's really down regulating. So if you're a person that experiences anxiety or lots of high energy, then that's a good way to start to calm yourself. And it can be whatever it looks like for you. So I hesitate to tell people how many times they should do something, because when I first started out, my attention span was like, that of a gnat. I was like, how long are we going to sit here and breathe for? But now I have more tolerance and more of a desire. It's like my body's calling for me to sit down. Some of us, depending on what our family situations look like, we don't engage in touch nearly often enough. So even just putting your hand on your heart, putting your hand on your stomach, putting your hand on your legs can be really calming and regulating, just to remind yourself to tap in. How am I feeling? What am I doing? What's going on here? So I encourage people just to start noticing however they can. If they want to set a reminder, 3 times a day to put their hand on their heart. Okay. If they want to start a morning routine with just some breathing, that's fine too. I love journaling, but I am a Libra and my brain is going a million miles a minute, and I need that space to get things out. A journal or a writing practice can be really helpful to take these thoughts out of your head and put them onto paper. Not that you have to do anything with them, but it just gives them a space to go. And I really love movement practices. And as many exercises as there are in this world, there are as many different movement practices, and exercise counts as well. But find a way to move your body. And weightlifting could be mindful, right? If you're doing it, thinking about how you're moving. Yoga is very mindful, but some way to move the energy so you're not just sitting and stuck, and it helps you to reconnect with your body, because when you're engaging in this physical activity, whether it's dance or something else, you need to be aware of how your body is positioned in the world. You'll start to just reconnect, notice things. Your body will start to wake up. You'll start to see how it feels, and then coming back into our bodies and connecting our brain and our bodies is the most powerful thing that we can do. We've been so connected for centuries from our bodies, and that is our work, to get back into them and listen to the wisdom.
So do you have a favorite meditation practice that you do just for meditation? I know there are thousands of them, but yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot. You know what? My favorite practice, which I guess is meditative in a sense, is to get up, make a cup of coffee in the morning, and go sit either back in my bed with my journal or in front of a beautiful window where sunlight is coming in, and just to start writing. And sometimes I'll pause and I'll just close my eyes and feel the sun or just notice. But I love to start my morning like that. And it's not with an agenda, this is what's going on today, or this is what I need to get done. It's not my to-do list, but it's just, is there anything that's coming up that I want to write about? Or how do I want my day to go? And I was better a few years ago about going to the gym first and then doing that. But what I realized is, or I became dedicated to that, because that's time that no one else can take away from me. I give in all these different areas, but as long as I take care of myself first, the day usually goes okay. And whatever happens throughout the day, I've already taken care of myself. So at the end of the day, I'm not too tired to do it, because I did it first. I put myself first and then gave to everybody else. And that's, I mean, to me, that's self-care at its best.
So take care of yourself first. Fantastic. So how do you envision just Black communities changing as a result of if we all did this? So what would be your vision of the world?
Oh my gosh. Of course, the cliche answer is peace, but it is also the real answer. I think peace within us as individuals. It's hard to teach somebody to do something you're not able to do yourself. So if we can start with ourselves and figure out how to regulate and how to express ourselves through nonviolent communication and work on understanding each other, that will have an exponential effect, because you teach your children, you've got multiple kids, and they're teaching their peers and their kids, and it just carries on. But I think really to just reconnect with who we are supposed to be as human beings. It's not normal for us to have aches and pains. It's become normalized. But I remember sitting in a presentation with a chiropractor, and she was like, it's not normal to wake up with back pain every day. And I was like, really? And I think I was in my late 20s, but it had become so regular. So many of the illnesses, the itises, the EDs, the things that we experience have become so common that we think that they're normal. And they're not supposed to be normal. So the more we can get back into our bodies and really just see, does it actually feel good when I engage in this practice? When I do this, when I drink this drink or eat this food does it actually feel good? I don't think it does, but it's a habit. Let me think about changing that habit to do something that feels more empowering instead of self-destructive.
So have you found in your practice, since you focus mostly on women, what about men? Is there a difference between working with men and women?
Yeah, there is a difference. And women, we apologize a lot. we think, we apologize a lot. We feel bad for putting ourselves first, taking up space, right? You know, all the things that we've been conditioned to do as little kids, like don't interrupt. And you know, the boys aren't socialized the same way. They're supposed to be loud and disruptive. And I was just saying the other day, you know, as women, we're often taught to go, oh, I could be wrong, but here's what I think, right? We excuse ourselves before we even speak. And men, most of the time, it doesn't even occur to them that they could be wrong because we're just socialized completely differently. So it is different working with men and women. Men are, I won't say necessarily more action oriented, but I have to work with them a little bit more to get them to think about the emotion behind it. Whereas often women are coming because we are like dissatisfied with something, not necessarily seeking a particular outcome, but like this makes me upset or I don't like the way I feel in this situation. We're more sort of in tune or allowed to express our emotions. So we start from there. And men tend to be a little bit more, I want this result. How do I get there? And incorporate the emotions back with them.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I guess because I sort of operate like that, so that's interesting. But I was raised by grandparents, so
With the goals first or with the emotions first?
goals
Operate like
first. Yeah, with the goals,
Mhm.
with the goals
Yeah.
first. Um, and but then it was, you know, in the South, and racism was much different than if you were raised
Mhm.
in other parts of the country. So a lot of that was to just help you just stay alive, just
Right.
stay alive, you know,
Right.
do all the stuff you want to do, but your number one goal is to stay alive. You know?
Which is that survival mode,
Right.
right? I mean, you who has time to think about emotions if you're worried about, you know, how you're gonna get to school safely and if you're gonna
Right.
have a job tomorrow and all of these other
All that
things.
stuff, right. So, what do you believe that intergenerational healing, the role that God, excuse me, the role that intergenerational healing plays in the journey of Black women, Indigenous women, and other people of color?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I think it's recognizing the strength of our ancestors and of the women who raised us, and then also forgiving them, you know, because it's so easy as the child of people to be like, oh, they didn't do this right, and this is why I'm like this, and this, you know, and to see the shortcomings, but also to recognize that they were probably barrier breakers as well in their own right. And so we are building on the shoulders of all of the people who have come before us, and each generation gets to do a little bit better, to do a little bit better and a little bit better. And you know, hopefully we will be healed really soon, and to not underestimate the amount of healing that we can do within ourselves, whether we don't have kids or already have kids. It's not too late. There's a lot of healing that can come even in adult parent child relationships as well.
So, storytelling. So, how would how would it affect us if our ancestors actually sat down and told their stories, and then even talked about the experiences that they went through? How would that help the healing process? Because I know there are
Yeah.
so many stories that die with our ancestors, with our elders,
Mhm.
that just die. We don't know what those stories are. And then I know even for myself, as I've looked through my background of some of the elders, I was amazed, surprised, and angry about a
Yeah.
lot of the things that they had to experience.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation last night, with, some like a teenager who's was born in the US, but family of Senegalese and doesn't know a whole lot about the culture. And the question was, "How come you don't know?" And I've heard that too from my mom. My mom integrated the University of Mississippi. She was the first Black woman to go. My grandfather was a huge part of the civil rights movement, working with Medgar Evers and Dr. King. And you know, the storytelling is it's an active piece. You know, kids don't just get it just by being next to you. And I'm always so amazed at how much I learn whenever my uncle and my auntie and my mom get together, because they start talking about Miss AQ White and Mr. Slow and Mr. Rainey and like all these people that I'm like, who? But my mom didn't have those, you know, there wasn't I won't say there wasn't an occasion to tell me the same stories, but there wasn't the same catalyst to tell the stories because they can, in community, they're bringing up stuff, their old memories. And so, absent that, outside of that, and especially because our communities have dispersed into different states and neighborhoods and all of those things, it really takes a concentrated effort and an openness, a willingness to share, I think, on part of the grandparent or the parent to say, hey, let me just tell you, did I ever tell you about this time that I did XYZ? Right. And I'm willing to bet that the kids will listen, especially if it can relate to something that they're doing. It's like you don't know what questions to ask because you have no idea. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity on the elders to be able to pass that on. But I also recognize that a lot of experiences are painful
Yes.
too.
Yes.
But I would encourage the sharing of the happy experiences, of the empowering experiences as well, because so much of what we know is trauma. But I had a friend of mine, I don't know, this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. He said he went back to Ohio and he walked into a corner store and the owner of the corner store said, hey, are you related to Mr. So-and-so? He said, yeah, that's my grandfather. He said, man, you look just like him. Let me tell you about what your granddaddy did. And he said it was so just invigorating and just like filled with so much love and pride because somebody recognized him 2 generations, below his grandfather. And he heard this beautiful story of what his grandfather used to do walking down the street and coming into the store. So it's not all tragedy. There are some really beautiful things that we can pass on, but we have to recognize that those stories are valuable. Even if we don't think that we did anything, even if we didn't break a barrier or, make $1 million, just our existence is empowering to somebody else because they can relate to it. So we have to share.
Yes, and we have to ask them to tell us those stories too, because they
Yeah,
don't think that we want to hear those stories. I know that's what
right.
happened in our family. I remember when I was little, my uncle was a civil rights attorney who also marched with Dr. Martin Luther King and from Little Rock, Arkansas. And I saw some things, but you don't know what you're seeing when you're that young. So as I
Right.
got older, I started asking questions, and they were glad to talk about it, but they just didn't think I wanted to know because that
Hmm.
thought that I was into the new way of thinking for kids my age. And it's like we do need to know those stories. So if you're
We do.
listening, ask your parents and grandparents to tell you those stories because they're wonderful stories. There's some great things in those stories. So, are there any other cultural or ancestral practices that have been instrumental in your journey that could also be instrumental in our journey too?
The first thought that I had was dance. Just dancing and not even necessarily like going back to West African dance or anything like that, but just the movement of your body and song. So much gets released just by singing, turning up the music loud and belting out the top of your lungs and just moving around. You see it in every culture that there's dance is connected to just life. There's celebrations when you dance. There's mourning when you dance. It becomes a way to just move the energy. But sometimes we get too buttoned up or worried about what other people might think. I love to dance Cuban salsa. I love it. I think maybe in a past life, maybe I was born in Cuba or something like that. But my direct lineage, it's not there, but just there are African roots in that. And I love being able to learn and to express and to share that energetic connection with a dance partner and then to move on right after. It is healing in and of itself just to move and to listen to music really loud.
Oh, so I dance all the time. So it's like
Yeah,
I make them up
it's
as I
good.
go.
There you go. My mom said the other day, thinking of people who may not understand you. My mom was like, I just think of a 19-year-old when you talk about music and dance. And I didn't have I think of the best comebacks like 20, 30 minutes later, 2 days later. My friend's like, yeah, tell her you want to stay forever young, but she didn't mean it, as a like, good job. I was like, are you kidding me, mom? Like, everybody dances. It doesn't have anything to do with being young or seasoned at all. It's just an expression, and it's so powerful.
Yes, it is. So we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome or self-doubt. So how can people handle those when they're feeling that in the moment?
Yeah. One, I would say recognize that it's normal. Oftentimes we don't feel our feelings because we think that we shouldn't be feeling them. But emotions are just signposts that there's a little bit of work to do, that there's a little tenderness here, there's something that's going on. And so what your body's asking you to do is just to acknowledge it and just to tend to it. So feeling imposter syndrome, I think, is normal. A lot of people feel that way. And then the work is to remember who you are, not just what you've done, but really who you are, and that you are just as deserving to be at this table, at this event, selling this course, doing this thing as the person next to you. And the third thing is that everybody has a struggle. I remember when I was a kid, my mom, maybe I had said something about some family that I thought was perfect. And she was like, honey, no family is perfect. Every family has its thing. I was like, really? I remember being like 8 or 9, being shocked. And then when I started to observe a little bit more, I was like, you know what? Yeah, she was right. Like there's no family that's perfect, no person that's perfect. And just to remind yourself, you are having a human experience. And why would you be any less compassionate with yourself than you are with somebody else? If you treated somebody the way that you treat yourself, you're probably ashamed and embarrassed. So stop it.
My mother used to say, baby, everybody's life is six in one hand and a half a dozen in the other.
In the other, right?
If they were passing the bag out and you put your hand in and picked out their struggle, you'd want yours back.
Right. That's so true. It is so true. I mean, that's perfect. It's like, that's ancestral wisdom, right? But it is so true that I don't think anybody goes through life and doesn't have some sort of struggle. It's just it's a part of life. You got to ride the waves and learn how to get through and make it to the other side. So, there's a difference between struggle and suffering. So think about, where you can not suffer, but struggle is normal.
So, when we think about the representation of Black women or in media and popular culture, so how does that affect the regular population and their identities?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a big question. I was trying to do some research about social media statistics a couple weeks ago. I don't even remember the question that I was actually looking up, but what I saw was, I think 10% of social media users produce 90% of the content or something like that. And so it reminded me that even when we are engaging, looking at TV or looking at social media and seeing examples, it's only a small percentage of people that is represented in that example that we see. And so the majority of people are probably a lot more like you than the people you were seeing who are influencers, movie stars, blah, 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 right? And just to keep that in mind, to really keep that in mind, like, what is it that you want and what are you following? And to make the choices about, how does following this trend, this person, this TV show actually make me feel? And does it really resonate, or does it pull up something in me that makes me feel like I'm inferior, or like I'm not good enough, or not pretty enough, or not rich enough, right? And to use what you really want as your filter to say yes to the things that align and no to the things that don't. I'll give an example. A couple years within the last few years, I've been looking at a lot of like just different dating content and stuff and these podcasts. And I thought, well, maybe I'll listen to some podcasts from the male perspective because, just to get the other side. I did not realize that the majority of the stuff that I was listening to was just toxic. I had no idea. I didn't get it until I started listening to a wider range of content and hearing from people who were actually in relationships. Like, these single people don't need to be talking about like half this. It's just stupid, right? And it made me realize, especially when you look at podcast statistics also, that I think if you produce more than 3 episodes, you're already in the top 27% of podcasters, because people start and don't finish. So that the people who are really popular, it's not necessarily a popular opinion, but they have figured out how to get eyeballs on their content, which then makes it more popular. So it's the same thing, right? That we have to be discerning about what it is that we're taking in to see, is it really true, and does it resonate with who we want to be and who we are trying to become, or does it tear us down and make us feel like we are lacking in some kind of a way? Then you got to make a choice about, are you going to continue to consume it or no?
That's true. And you can make that choice.
You can't. We always have a choice.
Oh, and some of it really is entertaining, because you listen to what you say and you say, oh,
yeah.
Okay, we're going to welcome you to the real world.
Absolutely.
One last question. So what message or words of encouragement would you like to share with Black women, Indigenous women, and people of color who are on their own path of healing and self-discovery?
Yeah. My message is to learn what it is that you want and that you desire, and start to put that first. Start taking care of yourself before you take care of other people. And don't let anybody tell you that your wants and your needs are too much. You have to learn how to have your own back, to validate yourself, and to know that what you're experiencing is within the realm of normal, and that that's okay. So surround yourself with the people who are going to help you grow into the person that you want to be, and be unapologetic about it. You don't have to be loud and, and like cuss everybody out who's not on board with it. That's not what I mean, but just to be like steadfast in your commitment to yourself.
And that commitment to yourself does need to, as she mentioned earlier, it does need to include some daily meditation, because you've got to check in with yourself. I recommend twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. Just check in with yourself, because you've got to look at the lies that you've told yourself and discard them, and the lies that other people have told you about yourself and discard them. And meditation will actually improve your other life. There are some great statistics that say that people who meditate every day or have a gratitude list every day make it 11 to 15% more than other people. So see, there's a reward in that too. So I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been a great session, wonderful session with some great information. And for those of you who are listening, I want you to reach out to her. So give them your contact information, please.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much. I've had such a great time. I love the questions that you asked. So you can find me at ashawilkerson.com or on Instagram at Asha Wilkerson ESQ. I would love, love, love to hear from you and to see what you thought about the episode. I would love to also tell you how I can work with you, which includes a retreat to Ghana, one-on-one coaching, and Reiki healing sessions.
Okay, and repeat the websites again, because people don't write that fast.
Right. It's Asha, ASHA, Wilkerson, WILKERSON.com. And then on Instagram, it's Asha Wilkerson ESQ.
Thank you very much. I know you guys have that information, because if you call me, I'm going to tell you that you need to get some help. I'm not the one. So as we close today's session, I want to remind everyone to be inspired. And until further notice, I want you to celebrate everything. May this day offer you just what you need in each unfolding moment. Do not go gently into that good night, but find a heel worth dying and take it. Be the person that you've been waiting for. Make today so awesome that yesterday gets jealous, and above all else, do it your way. I'm Stephanie Wilson-Coleman, known as the Empowerment Doctor, and as I always say, I can accomplish anything with the right pair of shoes. You guys have a great day. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch us. So I won't say bye now, but I'll say to next time. Bye.
Life's too short to drink cheap champagne, so I decided to buy me a better brand to taste with my strawberries. What a high, lemon bubbles in the sky on the beach.
Thank you. And I see I got the cover at the wrong date, but
thank you. That's probably because I rescheduled, right? Sorry about that.
Okay. No one is going to ask me about the date on that cover. They know better.
You got them trained well then. Good job.
Yeah, it's like, please. I will tell somebody, please, the healing is not in the date on that cover. Y'all, did you listen to the podcast? That's what you need, the healing, okay? Because if you're coming with me by the date, you really need some healing. Call that girl before you have a problem.
I love it. I love it.
So it's been wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm glad we worked out whatever difficulties you have. And I'm going to have to ask the guys to talk to StreamYard, because I've never had that happen to me before. And I'm not happy. I had to cut the opening off a little bit just to get through so we didn't run over time. But it's okay. It was just the song. So the song, I guess we got about 5 or 10 seconds of that, but we went right into that. So
and you just had to unplug it and replug it in, or what happened? Or what?
No, it just started working. I don't know what happened to it.
It's
just
so
magic.
weird.
Yeah, just magic.
Oh no.
I
Yeah.
said, I have no clue. Just magic. I said, you know what, God, I need that winning lottery number if you want to give me some magic. Okay.
Yeah. If you see fit to bless my bank account, I will take it.
I will take
to bless my lottery pick.
So it takes me, if I'm lucky, I've got to do a lesson sermon for church Sunday. So I try to work on it tonight and get everything done. That's one of the good things about StreamYard, is sometimes it makes it a little easier for me to get to you. So, but you'll have it at least by the end of the week. I'll try to get everything to you in the next couple of days. If I'm lucky, I'll get it to you tonight, but we don't know.
No pressure. No pressure at all.
No pressure.
All right. Thank you so much. I had a good time.
I did too. And good luck with all your clients and your path, because you're good. You're going to be great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I will see you around.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.